Welcome back, everyone. So, today we have the NFC North preview predictions for 2022. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys prefer the highlights while I'm talking? Do you want to see me while I'm talking? Do you want to do both? I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it because I don't know. People have their own preferences. So let me know in the comments which type of layout you want to see for these type of videos and videos going forward, obviously. So, last season in this division, it was the Packers on top, 13-4. You had the Vikings at 8-9, who were in so many close games. We'll get to that later. The Bears were 6-11, taking a step back. First year without Mitch Trubisky. They tried the Andy Dalton, Justin Fields thing, didn't work out. Lions were 3-13-1, which may have exceeded expectations for some people in an odd way, because I think some people thought the Lions may have won 1 or 2 games last year, maybe 0. So I guess they go 3-13-1 and be competitive in a lot of those games. That was nice to see for Lions fans, I'll put it that way. Now, as I like to do before we start these videos, I want to look at the 2022 DraftKings over-unders for each team in this division. The Packers lead the way at 11 wins. This is a Packers team that's won 13 games in each of the last 3 seasons, so 11 would be a bit of a disappointment for them, which is crazy because I would love 11 for my team. 9 wins for the Vikings. That's pretty much on par, I would say. I might have them over. We'll get to that later. The Bears at 6.5 and the Lions at 6.5. So you can flip those if you want. If you want to say Lions 3, Bears 4, I don't care. They have the same over-under for this year. I kind of disagree with that, though. I do have one team higher than the other. So anyway, let's get into my 4th place team in the NFC North for 2022. And that team will be the Chicago Bears, who I project to be 5-12 this season. This Bears team fired their head coach Matt Nagy and their GM Ryan Pace, so they are starting fresh. They're hiring new guys. Matt Eberflus is their head coach, and Ryan Poles is their GM. Ryan Poles actually was in the running for the Giants general manager job, so I'm pretty familiar with him, coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs. And, people said it's been a hit or miss offseason so far, but we'll see how it goes for the Bears, of course, going forward. You can't really prove much in 1 year as a GM. So Eberflus was the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts from 2018 to 2021. Of course, the Colts had a lot of success on defense during that time. They ran zone defense a lot. He does a lot of 4-man fronts, a 4-3 defense most of the time. Now, during the offseason, this Bears team lost some players, I have to say. They lost some talented guys. Khalil Mack went to the Chargers. Allen Robinson, of course, went to the Rams. Akeem Hicks, I believe, is right now in Tampa. And Eddie Goldman, which I don't know where he's at right now. But still, they lost 4 pretty important guys to this team. That's going to be tough to overcome, of course. They added 2 safeties in the first 2 rounds. Jaquan Brisker, who I really liked out of Penn State, and Kyler Gordon. So we'll see what happens with them. I think right now they do have a starting safety in Eddie Jackson that has not looked the same, I'll put it that way. The last couple years he's had some years that were not as good as his past years, and he's still just 27 years old, so I don't know what's going on there. But they added a slot cornerback, Tavon Young, on defense. They have Roquan Smith. Jalen Johnson's a young corner that I liked out of Utah a couple years back, but this defense is not what it used to be back in 2018, 2019, even 2020. They are not at that level anymore. And offensively, this team feels like an absolute mess. They have done absolutely nothing to help Justin Fields. I kind of feel bad for him, and this is why it makes no sense to keep a regime for an extra year when all signs point to them being fired anyway, because Justin Fields is going to go down as a Ryan Pace and a Matt Nagy guy. He was taken during that regime, and then less than a year later, those guys are fired, and this next regime is now kind of stuck with Justin Fields. And I don't know how Ryan Poles or Matt Eberflus look at Justin Fields, but based on how they built around him this offseason, they are putting this guy in no position to succeed, and I feel bad. You compare his situation to a Zach Wilson, who has had the same GM since he's been there. I mean, the amount of weapons the Jets put around him, Garrett Wilson, they got a 2nd-round receiver last year in Elijah Moore, a 2nd-round running back this year in Breece Hall. They signed Corey Davis for big money, a couple tight ends in Uzama and Conklin. They are doing so much to put Zach Wilson, and they got some offensive linemen, Laken Tomlinson and some other guys, but they are putting him in the best position to succeed. And then you look at Justin Fields, and he's like, yo, what the hell? You guys are doing nothing to help me out here. So you look at some of his weapons, quote-unquote weapons. David Montgomery, he's a fine running back. Darnell Mooney I like, but more of a wide receiver too, in my opinion. N'Keal Harry came over from the Patriots recently in a trade. I don't know what to expect there. Cole Kmet I like. He was a tight end from Notre Dame. And, Byron Pringle, a guy coming from the Chiefs who had some big plays for them, but once again has not proven that much in the NFL. And this offensive line, it might be the worst in football, if not definitely bottom 5. I mean, Tevin Jenkins has to be better. He's had back injuries in the past. There's rumors about him being on the second team in training camp. I don't know. So things have to get better there. But they lost Jason Peters, who might have been one of their better offensive linemen last year. Peters is probably in his 40s by now anyway. But I just don't know how this team puts up over 20 points consistently. They lack so much offensive firepower. It's a new system for Justin Fields. He doesn't have that many great weapons. He has no offensive line. Like, it's going to be a tough year, and if Justin Fields can somehow succeed with this roster around him, the Bears are going to feel very good about that situation. But this does seem like a multi-year rebuild for the Bears. I'm a person that believes you can rebuild in the NFL relatively quickly, like maybe 1 or 2 years, but the Bears might be in a situation leaning towards more of the 2, 3, 4 year mark because they are in a tough spot right now. My third place team in the NFC North is going to be the Detroit Lions, who I project to be 6-11 this year. And they were best known for playing hard for Dan Campbell, who was in his first year, but it did not result in a ton of wins. As I mentioned, they were 3-13-1 last year, so that's not the ideal record, of course, but they do play hard. There were assumptions that they would move on from Jared Goff in favor for a young quarterback, but unfortunately for the Lions, this was not the year to draft a quarterback. They got the second pick, got Aiden Hutchinson, which is great, but I'm sure they would have loved for a stud quarterback to have been available in this draft. But, of course, we know Kenny Pickett was the first guy off the board. He went in the 20s. So, yeah, this was not the draft for a quarterback, apparently. But the Lions were commonly graded amongst, NFL analysts and people that follow the draft as like an A or A-plus type of draft in 2022. Getting Aiden Hutchinson at number 2 overall is a massive W. I thought for sure he would go first. I know that Trayvon Walker may have like a higher ceiling, but I think that Hutchinson has the highest floor, and I think he has a very high ceiling as well. So I don't know why the Jags went in that direction. We'll see what happens with that. But they got Jamison Williams at pick number 12 as well. I think he's a great complement to Amon-Ra St. Brown, another young receiver they took last year, I believe, in the 4th round, because Amon-Ra St. Brown, more of a slot guy, can work those short routes, and Jamison Williams is a field stretcher, of course. So that's going to help out that offense for sure. It was a good move by them. And I like this team's offensive line a lot. Even their offense as a whole is not that bad. Like, their offensive line, you have 2 tackles in Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell, who might be some of the best players at their positions, and then you have Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson out of Ohio State a few years back, who I like at guard. So their offensive line's in a pretty good spot, honestly. They might be a top 5 offensive line in football if things go the right way. This team, though, did have a rough year defensively. They did add Hutchinson in the draft. They got Deshaun Elliott from the Ravens. They got Jeff Okudah back from the Achilles. But I still don't expect them to be great on defense yet, but maybe one day. Michael Brockers took a big step back, who they traded for last year from the Rams. Their defensive line does look decent, though. Levi Muzarike, Aleem McNeil, who's a rookie, the Okwara brothers, Julian and Romeo. I do like those guys. You got Charles Harris, who played pretty well last year. Josh Pascal out of Kentucky, the athletic freak in round 2. And then, of course, Aiden Hutchinson, the 2nd overall pick. So their defensive line is pretty scary. Guys that can rotate in and out, keep them fresh. That should help that defense a lot. I love DJ Chark. I've been a big fan of his for a while. They got him on a 1-year, $10 million deal, so getting Chark, a talented receiver, on a prove-it deal, I do like that. And the skill position players are good. You have TJ Hawkinson, one of the better tight ends in football. DeAndre Swift, one of the better running backs in football. I just talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was a stud the second half of the year. DJ Chark, very talented. And Jamison Williams will come back probably halfway through the regular season if his ACL recovery does go well. But how much will Jared Goff hold this team back? That's the real question. I think if this Lions team had an elite quarterback, let's just say they traded for Deshaun Watson hypothetically and he was able to play every game, I think this Lions offense would be really good, like potentially top 10. They have the offensive line, they have the weapons, they just don't have the quarterback. And Jared Goff, we know what he is. We've seen him have good seasons before, but I don't think Jared Goff's even a top 20 quarterback in football. So he is what he is. He's below average. He's not awful, but he's also not that good. So he will hold them back in some regard. They have to figure out this defense still. They have to get their quarterback of the future, hopefully next draft. But this team is moving in the right direction. They might be just a year or 2 away from being very competitive in Detroit. The team I project second in this division is the Minnesota Vikings, who I have at 10-7. I do like them a bit more than what Vegas is saying right now. So if you were a Vikings fan last year, you probably have a lot of gray hairs. If you don't have them already, it caused a lot of stress. I heard a stat that 14 out of their first 15 games, I believe it was, were decided by one score. So I mean, this was a 8-9 team that could have been like 12-5 if things broke a different way. So I mean, they record-wise were not that great, but they were in every game last year. It just seemed like week after week they kept losing on game-winning field goals and crap like that. It was just a rough time for them. So Mike Zimmer is out as head coach. He's been there for a while. He will be replaced by the former Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell. And they got a new GM as well. So just like the Bears, they're completely rebranding over there in Minnesota. Now, this is a team that in the past has been very run-heavy. That's what Mike Zimmer wanted. That's what he wanted when Kevin Stefanski was OC. And, of course, Gary Kubiak. So they've been a run-first type of team. But now it seems like with Kevin O'Connell, they want to pass the ball more. And honestly, I'm expecting some big numbers out of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins in the regular season is a good quarterback. The playoffs and the big regular season games, not so much. But you know what? I think overall he's going to put up big numbers. I expect like around 4,900, 5,000 yards and putting up 35 plus touchdowns. Kirk Cousins may have a low-key really good season this year in 2022. And Justin Jefferson should have another monster year. If they're going to pass the ball a lot, he might have 1,600 plus yards. Like, Justin Jefferson is that good. He's one of the top 5 receivers in football, in my opinion. They have good weapons. They have Jefferson, Adam Thielen, who is 31-32 now, but still catches a lot of touchdowns when he's out there. Irv Smith, back from injury. He missed all of last year, so that was a big loss for them, but I do like him. KJ Osborne makes some big plays for them as their third receiver. Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison at running back. They have a good group there with offensive talent. Now, the offensive line, it's not great, but it doesn't look that bad either. I think Christian Darrisaw proved he can play last year at left tackle. Their right guard spot's a bit of a concern, but like outside of that, their offensive line should be good enough, so we'll see. Their secondary on defense, they're pretty loaded. They have a lot of depth, which is definitely huge in a passing league. Patrick Peterson's back for his second year here. Harrison Smith is still there. Cameron Dantzler's a guy I liked in the middle of the draft a couple years back. They have Lewis Seen, Andrew Booth Jr. They have some guys. Like, they have a lot of depth here. So, I mean, I know they have a mixture of young guys and veterans, Harrison Smith and Peterson being the veterans. Then you have, like, Seen, Booth, Dantzler as the young guys. But this is a good group of players right here. At linebacker, Jordan Hicks was added from the Cardinals. He was a former Eagle as well. He's a solid linebacker. He's had some injury issues in the past, but I think he's been fine recently. Zadarius Smith coming over from the Packers, that should help. He had a bit of a down year last year, but we know what he's capable of. They still have Dalvin Tomlinson, the former Giant. I like him. Danielle Hunter has to be healthy. He came back last year, played about 7-8 games, but he's got to be healthy. They got Harrison Phillips from Buffalo, so that should help their defensive line. And I don't know, I just kind of like this team. Like, I do like what they have going right now. I like that they're going to pass the ball more. I think it will help their offense put up more points, and their defense is pretty talented. So it would not shock me if this team won the division. I'm still going to pick Green Bay, obviously, based on the process of elimination here. But it would not shock me if the Vikings have a really good year. They play well for O'Connell. That's that new voice. Get rid of Zimmer. Not saying Zimmer was the problem, but sometimes a team needs a new voice, and that can definitely help motivate this team. They're very talented, so we'll see what happens with the Vikings here in 2022. And my first place team in this NFC North for 2022 will be the Green Bay Packers, who I predict to be 11-6 this year, which I think 11 was their over-under, so I have it pretty much as a push. I guess you would win that bet technically. I don't know. But anyway, so this team has had 13 wins or more. It's been 13 exactly in each of the past 3 years with Matt LaFleur since he's been there. That is super impressive. But when you have Aaron Rodgers and have the high expectations that the Packers have, regular season wins is not going to get it done. A-Rod still has one Super Bowl in his career. I think he deserves more. I hope this is the year he gets it done. I always root for them because the Giants have not been in the playoffs in a while. Ironically, the last time the Giants were in the playoffs, they lost to Rodgers. But yeah, I've been rooting for Rodgers in the playoffs, and it has not gone well the past few years, obviously. So we'll address the elephant in the room. Devontae Adams is no longer a Green Bay Packer. He's been there since like 2014. So him and Rodgers have built such a great connection. They were always on the same page in the red zone. He was such a great go-to option and helped put up a lot of touchdowns in that offense. And now with 2 first-round picks at their disposal, did the Packers finally draft a wide receiver in the first round for Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely not. They still have Mercedes Lewis. He's still kicking. He's still probably 38, 39 years old at this point. But they did not draft a first-round wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. But they got one in the second round. Sammy Watkins was brought in. Hopefully he's healthy. He might be healthy for 4 games and put up good numbers, but can he be healthy the whole year? That's a big question. Randall Cobb is still there in his early 30s. Allen Lazard is a pretty good player, but more of a wide receiver too. Amari Rodgers they took last year in the draft, 2 years ago now. And they took Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs this year. Christian Watson had like a minor knee surgery recently, so I don't know how long he'll be out for, but that's not what you want to see, of course. And Robert Tonyan, the tight end, is coming off the ACL injury. He might be low-key a pretty nice weapon for this team, especially in the red zone. He has been in the past. So if David Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, their tackles, can be healthy, that will help this offensive line immensely. Those guys, when they're right, are some of the best tackles in the league, and having Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level in back-to-back years is not too bad either, so that's pretty nice to have. Defensively, it's still a pretty good unit. They did lose Zadarius Smith, which is not ideal, as I mentioned, but you are getting some other reinforcements. Jair Alexander is back after missing 13 regular season games last year. He's one of the top 5 cornerbacks in football when he's healthy. They added Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, 2 guys out of Georgia in the draft. They should probably start for that team next year. And once again, as a Packers fan, you know it's Super Bowl or bust. There is no like, oh, we'll go 14-3, but then lose in the second round, or in the divisional round, I should say. Like, you can't have that. This team has to at least make it to the Super Bowl. You want to win one. And the NFC is weaker than years past. Like, just looking at it, like, some of the best teams that are going to face are the Buccaneers and the Rams. And, like, I don't know who else there is. Like, I could see the Niners being good if Trey Lance is the real deal. I can see maybe Dallas or Philly. I don't know. It just seems like a long shot. I think there's, like, maybe 3 or 4 teams that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. And the Packers happen to be one of them. So, like, maybe this is the year finally. If Tom Brady had actually retired, the window would have been way, way open for this Packers team to finally make the Super Bowl. I feel like it would have been just them and the Rams, honestly. So now that Brady is back, though, you got to put the Buccaneers back in that conversation. They just added Julio Jones, too. So, yeah, I mean, this is nothing compared to the AFC, though. Like, the AFC has literally 3 teams in one division that are Super Bowl contenders, talking about the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Chargers, maybe even the Raiders. Maybe you could say 4. I don't believe the Raiders are contenders, in my opinion. But, yeah, I mean, this AFC, or this NFC is a lot worse than the AFC. So I think the Packers are in the right conference right now. And, you know, hopefully their offense can still put up numbers. Like Aaron Rodgers, as I mentioned, has put up MVP numbers the past couple of years. He's won it back-to-back years. But that was with Devontae Adams. Now, who steps up in his plays? He is pretty much irreplaceable. But if you can get a combination of guys, Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins and Allen Lazard, to try and take his place or just at least make up for it, that will help a lot. Getting back Robert Tonyan at tight end is going to help, and you do have Aaron Jones and you have A.J. Dillon. You have a good run game there, so hopefully the Packers offense is still good enough. It's not going to be elite in my opinion. I shouldn't say that because they have Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know. They just don't have the weapons that they had in the past, so we'll see. But I still expect this team to win the division. I expect them to at least make the conference championship. I would be surprised if they don't, but the Packers have disappointed in years past in the playoffs, so we will see. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Once again, we'll run down what I predict. Packers in the first at 11-6. I had the Vikings in the second at 10-7. I had the Lions in third at 6-11, and I had the Bears at 5-12, which might be generous, but we'll see. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave in the comments your predictions for the NFC North in 2022, and I'll talk to you guys next time.